What is good? I just experienced some a parasite. Okay, I just experienced this might kind of merge into the realm of the esoteric. I just experienced a real life parasite, right? Energetic parasite. Now, some people don't believe in the whole notion of being an empath. Some people don't believe in that. And I can scientifically, I can understand why. I can understand the logic behind why someone would not believe in this thing about being an empath. However, I can kind of scientifically explain it, right? So say that even if it's not a spiritual thing, some of us have experienced at a very early age traumatic experiences that caused for us to have to defend ourselves in social circumstances, right? Like from the onset, let's say at a very young age, hypothetically, you're like 4 years old, 3 years old, maybe 4, and and you're in someone's yard and a bunch of kids slightly older than you at the age of 4, you're just weak and they're bigger than you, maybe like the age of 6 or 7, maybe even 8, and they pin you down, and then one of them smashes your fingers, like beats your fingers, right? You might have some trauma, right? And so that puts you on aware mode. That puts you on cautious mode the next time you're around a group of people, right? And then, you go home, and your home itself isn't even like a safe environment where you feel safe and protected, right? And so you don't have anywhere to get a sense of security, sense of safety. And so what begins to happen is those memories impress into you, and you begin to develop acute awareness of people's behaviors as a result of being forced to have to pick up on how people act and behave. You pick up on these patterns based off of experience, and so you develop this understanding and awareness at an early age that a lot of people are just scum, like pure scum, right? So you begin to recognize acute patterns, acute behaviors, acute, sensory experiences based off of, the presence of danger, and so you pick up an acute awareness emotionally, right? And because of that, you're able to pick up on other emotions too, as some emotions are similar or the same, like anxiety and excitement. It said that anxiety and excitement are basically the same energy, and you can, direct your focus to a, to something more productive. If you're having anxiety, you could just say, I don't want to get into all that, but main point is you're highly acutely aware of behavior in humans and why they're doing what they're doing over time. And then say like you skip around and live at different places from place to place to place. Each time you have to become acutely aware, since your initial experiences with your peers has been, a highly traumatic one, and you have no place as a child to go be protected and comforted, and someone that will, stand up to your bullies for you, you learn to adapt, and either you're gonna get walked all over, or you're gonna protect yourself against the fucking bullies, right? But regardless, you become aware of these behaviors and emotions in people because you are unconsciously paying attention. Each new environment, you see the same pattern over and over again. Amongst any distinct group of people, you start to recognize these patterns over and over again, and you feel that, right? And so therefore you can feel things, and so then you develop that empathic nature, or that empathic. So even if being an empath isn't this spiritual thing, which it seems like a lot of people want to like tie that into spirituality, like, oh, I'm an empath, right? Which may be true, but at the same time, like, being an empath might be like a result of, being acutely aware of the danger around you. And then maybe some people are just naturally born that way, where they pick up on those impressions. But I do think a lot of it has to do with experience in the real world, and that makes you like an empath, right? Hopefully y'all heard me that whole time. Watch, this is going to be one of those times where my microphone and my earbuds is out, and I just spoke a bunch of good shit and it didn't come out. Hopefully you were able to hear me. So I was just at this grocery store, and I'm not going to name the one, but I know who the main manager is, and they're sitting outside the front smoking their cigarettes, smoking this nasty smelling ass cigarettes, and these people, I pick up on this negative energy coming from them. And sure enough, they're talking shit about all the customers. They're about to close, and I overhear them talk mad shit about the customers, right? Because, and believe me, I've done my time. I've done my time in retail / restaurant, hospitality type of industries, right? I've done my combined 5 years in restaurant work, right? I've done my time, right? So I know how these places operate. I know how, a grocery store, although I've never worked in one, I'm going to argue that a grocery store is highly similar to it's highly similar to a restaurant type of environment, because it just is. I've worked at Walmart. I know shitholes, right? And those types of environments. It's these people are, and I understand how customers can be, and I understand how like you get tired of the same things, and then it's just like, oh, the customer. Well, I get that how you can just be tired of customers, right? And it's like, oh, geez, why can't they just do this, right? I get that, and that can be annoying and frustrating. Excuse me, I get that. However, at the same time, hold on just a sec. Okay, I'm back. So, at the same time, I know how customers can be, and there's this energy in those types of work environments that permeates throughout those types of atmospheres, those environments, and it's a low, what I would call it a low vibration type of energy, where because you got to think, if the manager is out there with a couple of the coworkers and it's about to close and they're just talking mad shit about the customers, then like I could feel what they're talking. Like I'm not saying they were aiming it at me. It didn't feel that way. I'm not saying that they were aiming it at me, but I could feel like I could feel what they were doing. I could feel how like their energy emanating off of them, and it's just like this negativity. Like they were vibing. Like, you ever seen a bunch of people vibe in a negative light? They vibe negatively. Like, so in other words, they're on some kind of vibe, but the vibe is like in the same way a group of bullies in school, they're vibing off the glee. They're in this state of glee because they're energetically, or they're attacking the one kid that's defenseless, and they're vibing off of that. Like, yeah, like beat his ass, or like make him scared. Ooh, like that, and the kid flinches, and they're like, they're like laughing, they're vibing. It's a similar type of energy. So that's what I'm picking up on from these people. So they're vibing off of like talking shit about the customers. I can hear them, and this was beyond just people being frustrated. And this is my subjective experience too. So, but anyways, you could tell that they were just vibing off of people. Like, they're vibing off of talking the shit about the people as if it was some kind of entity. It felt like some kind of entity. Like they were, and I felt it in my chest, like this uneasiness. And it was not like anxiety. It wasn't like, but it was similar to that pressure that you get when you're about to get into a fight. You know what I'm talking about? Like, as if they were targeting you. That's what it kind of felt like, except that I didn't feel it was aimed at me necessarily, but I wish I could better put this into words, because it's beyond just some people complaining that's like, it went beyond. It felt beyond just some workers being frustrated that customers are coming in right before they're closing. You know what I mean? It felt beyond that. It felt like they were just vibing off of it. And then that energy felt like it went through the whole store. Okay. That energy felt like it was throughout the whole store. Like, someone went on the intercom and said, our store is closing in like 5 minutes. Now, I can't state what they said verbatim, but it had like a joyful and sarcastic undertone, a mildly sarcastic undertone. So that's when you might say, well, Billy, you're just reading into things. You're thinking too much. No, bitch. You just don't know how to think. You can't think enough. So when you see me actually using my brain, like when you see me actually using my brain, that's too much for you to think about. That's too much for your measly little head to, like your brain can't grasp what I'm trying to say. So shut the fuck up, right? So, and I'm not denying that sometimes I can misinterpret stuff. Don't get me wrong, I'm just human too, right? But still, most likely I'm right. So, check it out. So, then a few minutes later, as the store's about to close, a girl gets on there, but hers is more overt. It was this happy, and clearly, for those of you who get it, that get what I'm talking about, y'all know what I'm talking about. I'm not talking to anybody that's stupid. Hopefully there aren't any stupid people listening to this or watching this. But, so she gets on there and she's like, we are about to close and have a Merry Christmas. But you could tell it was, what's the word? Contrite or whatever. I'm trying to think of the right word. You could tell that there was like, it sounded super sarcastic. Like, I get that they were frustrated to go home. Look, they're getting off early tonight. They're getting off early tonight. You would think that these people would be actually in a good mood because of the fact that they're probably getting off early. They're closing at 7. So they're probably going to get out of there around 8, maybe 9 at most. When usually they would get out of there maybe around 11 or midnight or whatever. But just the fact that those miserable people, they're so, like, isn't the way reality works is when you have a full-time job, isn't that the happiness? Isn't that the happiness? Okay, you got your job and you got your house that you go to at night. That's the happiness, isn't it? Well, how come people aren't happy? How come they just stew and fester in that misery and that vibe off of each other? Now, the reason why I say it was parasitic, because it felt slightly otherworldly in a sense, and like, and it just may be, it just felt like it was an entity, like meaning like an energy that they were all connected to, who, you know what I mean? It felt like they had that energy, that they were all vibing on that same negative energy, like shitting on the customers, and it made them feel good. If they were whole within themselves and felt good and had a good self-esteem about themselves, they would not have the need to do that. You know what I'm saying? So those people probably have externally all the external things, all the external measures of a relatively okay life. When I go in there, they're all usually there, the same people, and they're all working their job. For the past year and a half, it's the same people that I see every time. So if they're doing that, then you would assume that they're at that job because they like being there. They like it. That's what they chose, right? Didn't they choose? Isn't that the way it works? They chose to be there because that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to work at a grocery store. Oh yeah, sure. I'm guarantee you that that's what they did. I guarantee you they sat around and they were like, man, what am I going to do with my life? Man, that grocery store is hiring. Oh my God, I finally got a job at this grocery store. I've always wanted to work here. No, they're most likely they're just following in line, doing what they're told. They were told to get a job, and so they went and got their job at the grocery store, and they're not even content with themselves. They're probably most likely just clocked in and, well, it's what I gotta do. And I mean, the proof's in the pudding. The fact that they can vibe over talking shit about the customers, you know, then that's my proof. The fact that they can, because if they were genuinely content, it would emanate from them. You would feel it coming off of them. They wouldn't even feel the need to vibe with one another over talking shit. I worked with some people at a warehouse called Bearing Distributors in Rock Hill for like a year, and those were some shit tards too, right? Those people, you know, the main manager of the warehouse, he was cool. He might not like me now, but me and him may have a misunderstanding, but I don't have anything against him. He was okay. But my other coworkers, the 2 girls and the dude that worked there, they were pieces of shit. Every time a customer would walk in, they would just talk mad shit about the customers. Like, after the customer left, they would talk mad shit about each and every single customer. They would talk, and I'm talking about, they would just be vibing together about it. Like, man, who's that? You know, blah, blah, blah. They would just make up something to talk shit about the person. This is the South, where everybody loves Jesus, right? Loves Jesus, right? And so they're vibing, and then when one of them goes to break, they talk about whoever the rest of the other two talk about the person that goes on break. And then when the other person leaves, goes on break, they talk about that person. Like, they talk about it and they're vibing. And you know what I did for that year? I just did my job. I stayed in the warehouse and I shipped and received orders. And I tried my best to not even talk to them for that whole year. And I had part-time jobs on the side. And I'd be alone in a warehouse for a whole year, like being in prison. And then I would then I would go do extra jobs. You know, I was literally like in a prison, in a hell. So somebody fucking goddamn tell me to go back and work at a fucking warehouse again, right? Every warehouse experience has been shit. Fuck working for other people. If that means I don't have friends and I don't have family as a result, and people ostracize me, and if I struggle financially and they say, well, look at you talking about you're not going to go work at a warehouse. Fuck you, you privileged fuck. Is all I got to say about it. It's usually the people that try to shame you and chastise you, in my case, or try to like, I just don't give a fuck, right? I just don't give a fuck. I'd rather be alone than have some privileged people that have been handed everything try to say, well, it's your own fault. If you would have went to the warehouse, blah, blah, blah. These are motherfuckers who would have never worked for a Porta-John company or never worked as a janitor. They would cry to their mom and dad, who would take them in until they could get back on their feet. So go fuck off, right? All right. Y'all have a Merry Christmas. Have a Merry Christmas, everybody. And a Happy New Year. And, yeah, I don't vibe with that negative shit. And that what I've described here tonight is exactly why I quit working for other people. Not the sole reason, but in the top reasons as to why I stopped working for other people. One of the main reasons, like, who in their right mind wants to work for somebody else? Who in their right mind? I mean, don't get me wrong. I know people who are happy working for other people and they're content where they're at, and that's good. Good for them. You know, if they're content and happy with doing that. But in general though, who in their right mind sees a big company and goes, oh, I want to go trade all of my time and live there and then have a box at night that I get to go sleep and take a bath in and eat some food. Because you don't live your life. You don't work to live your life. If you are working, when I was working at that warehouse, I didn't work that job so that I could live my life. I spent the majority of my waking hours at that warehouse moving those boxes out, receiving those boxes in, and listening to my coworkers talk shit about everybody that walked in there and talk about how they're getting fucked up this weekend and I'm gonna get drunk and bragging about it and shit for a full year. Had to listen to those retards. So I wasn't living. I was in prison. I was in a prison. There was no time. That is where I lived. That is where you clock in at and do your 40 hours plus. That is where you live. You don't live at this place you get to come to at night and eat your food and sleep and take a bath. You don't live there. You don't live here. Wherever you have a bed and a refrigerator and a stove and a shower, that's not where you live. You live where you work. The people that you're hanging around, that's where you live. And then your peer who owns that business, who you are making money for, allows you to leave there and come to your... See, the difference between modern slavery... I know I'm going off on a tangent here. The difference between modern slavery and slavery of the past is that the slaves got a dwelling at night for free. But in modern slavery, not only do you get to be the slave inside of the warehouse, you actually... Your slave owner that owns that warehouse doesn't even provide you a place to live. He's going to give you a little bit of money so that you can have a place to go to at night. Hopefully, if even that, because I've worked at warehouses and the majority of the time I worked for other people, I didn't have a place to live. Oh, I worked for myself. Oh, I have a place to stay at night. Anyways, Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho.